Okay, let's do it then. Art critique time. So today, also I got a new goody item, baby faces blaster. So today, I kind of want to fix a problem of yesterday, because yesterday I did the art critique of the big earner for the spy, but then when I looked at the recording, the number of moments my sound wasn't getting out of the mic. And so one, I want to record it this time to make things proper, but also, if you were here yesterday, I did a little quick research for some small things that I'm gonna add extra to this critique, so maybe hopefully it will be worth your while anyway. So, and also, as always, disclaimers. I'm gonna talk just a bit about game design, not gonna focus too much on it. And I'm gonna go with this critique through Feldman's method. I'm gonna first describe what I see on the description, then I'm gonna analyze the elements of art, the second step. Then I'm gonna interpret the creative vision, the third step. And then I'm going to make a judgment call of successful or unsuccessful art based on the principles of art. So let us begin. First things first, description. What do I see? So it's basically a knife, right? But after my research, I can say this is an Italian stiletto specifically. You can see it like there is the handle of it with the small details. This lateral part here, I think it's where it's part of the mechanism that has the knife get inside the handle. And the knife itself, there are some bandages on this part. What else? There is the guard. Let's say if this was a sword, this part in the middle would be the guard of it. Maybe we can say it's the guard of the stiletto also. And what else? Yeah, there is the blade here. You can notice some details of the design of the stiletto. And there's a very small, like, chipped part here, I think. And yeah, and the bandages appear to be bloody, right? The ones on the big earner. So yeah, that's mostly it for the description. Also, why don't we just make do this, just so we get less distracted from the yellow thing on the background. Anyway, let's go to the analysis now. So for analysis, let's talk about for example, the shapes first. For the shapes, you can see it's a pretty long shape here. There's like some protrusions for the guard, but through different angles we don't see the protrusions, but we still see that kind of dimension of the shapes. And naturally we see something kind of symmetrical for the blade, and that gets to an edge at the tip of it. I want to also add to the forms that this part's very flat. And the handle of the stiletto is somewhat of a flattened cylinder. Speaking of the handle, in here we can see use of lines. There is like the use of a straight line with continuous thickness, and to help show us that part of the stiletto. I believe this is because I think the stiletto in way it works normally, the blade gets inside the handle. So as I said before, I think that part is all about that mechanism and communicated here through lines. What else? Points, I don't think there are any, because this part here, if we like, this kinda can fool us, but if we change the angle we can realize that it has it's another set of protrusions here. These are like some small balls. I could have also mentioned them for the forms, I suppose. And what else? Not sure there is any points anywhere else. Color there, it's not that much to talk about, right? There's this part of the handle that's black, and the rest are all in shades of grey. The other parts of the stiletto, the guard, and the very tip of it. Let's say the pommel, if this was a sword, and also this part here. And the blade itself, it's light grey, or a greyish white, I guess. And I suppose the bandages are in a color of light red. Let's talk about textures now, because this is a perfect chance to talk about like these stained textures of blood, right? But that's, I think, the most noticeable texture, because other than that we have somewhat of metallic texture on parts of the beginner. Yeah, like here we have like these metallic textures. The element of the light and darkness reflecting helps us realize that. So let's talk about the element of value, which is all about light and darkness. And there is not much, right? Depending on the angle that we look, we see light reflecting on the beginner. So on some angles there is some intense brightness, but on other ones there is not much. There neither shades are reflective or brightness, nothing flashy, nothing pitch black. So yeah, just on specific angles, intense brightness. And what else? I didn't say anything for the element of space yet, but there's not much to talk about, right? There's like some minimal space between the hand of the stiletto and the blade here, very like, it's so minimal, it's small. And the rest is just like open because it's the placement of the beginner in the frame of the presentation here. What else? Dimension points, lines, shapes, forms, space, texture, color, yeah, sure. We have had something for all 8 elements of art, so I guess we can just move on to the interpretation now. The fun part, let's say. So, let's begin with the basics. I'm gonna interpret that this was designed as a weapon for the spy, for Team 42. First idea here. You know, we use it in game and stuff like that. There's stuff like the name, the big earner. This is something that I read on the wiki yesterday. Apparently, big earner in Mafia slang, I'm gonna talk about Mafia also, but big earner in Mafia slang is someone who earns a lot of money for the family. Especially if you think about, I don't know, the Italian mob, where we have the family. I don't know about the mobsters, the mafia gangs of other parts of the planet, you know, the Yakuza or whatnot. In any case, but why am I talking about mafia and gangs in the first place? Well, it's not that hard to notice, right? When we look at the item set of the big earner, which is the Man of Honor, it contains the Enforcer, the big earner, the Cosa Nostra cap, and the Made Man. The Cosa Nostra cap, the Cosa Nostra, I think, is a very clear reference to the Cosa Nostra, which, as far as I remember, it was a mafia group in Italy. And so we have that, we have some clear tight links to that on the game design, right? On the name of the items. Even they themselves, what were they? The Enforcer is just another kind of... here's the Enforcer. It's just another kind of gun. The Cosa Nostra cap, it's a cap. The Main Man is a rose. Nothing... Especially the Cosa Nostra cap, I think, is the strongest tie that we have. But naturally also so because of that stuff, and also the fact that this is an Italian stiletto helps a lot with that. There was also when the item was launched, the promo for the item was like some, apparently there was a line of text apparently trying to communicate some sort of Italian accent. So as I interpret it, so because of all that, I'm gonna interpret that. So the idea of the big earner, another vision they had was this should be some sort of nod, reference, fantasy of like you're a member of the mob as playing spy, stuff like that. What else? Also, there's the fact, I mentioned this yesterday later on the critique, but I wonder, I didn't find anything about that yet, but I wonder if like the bloody bandage on the blade was something that the mafia used to do, either as some sort of way to stylize your weapon, or if it had any sort of meaning, I don't know, but could be that also. Another tie to it, if it's the case. I didn't do too much in-depth research. I just did a very superficial one. But that's fine. What else? Because I'm doing art critiques in this stream in the first place. If you wanna, so I can't always research everything, and I kinda like to do it in this improv way, let's say. But in any case, so we have for now ideas of a knife for the spy, some sort of mafia mob fantasy. What else? We can think of the game design of it. What does it do? It adds cloak on kill and gains a speed boost. So those are interesting. The speed boost on kill, if we just think of the spy gameplay of like backstabbing someone, the moment you backstab you lose your disguise, the victim screams loudly, and so that makes it easier for every other enemy around to see you as a spy. You usually are gonna be, depending on how you play spy, you're gonna be often on the enemy back line, in the middle of the enemy team, you know all of that. That's typical, classical spy game design. You play spy however you want, but that's very common, very easy, and one could argue part of the design in some way or another of the spy. And so, considering that's somewhat intuitive, I would say, that kind of argument, that idea for the spy. And so now what this do is this gain speed boost on kill and cloak on kill. The speed boost, so I think the most intuitive way to think about this is that you should use it to run away, right? And you can cloak to run away, also help you survive. So and now the question is so that was part of the gameplay, and because considering that, I do believe it's reasonable to add that to the creative vision, so as that's some sort of fantasy, a weapon that helps you get away. I also talked about that yesterday, but the fact that this is an Italian stiletto, and yesterday I was calling this a pocket knife. I don't know if that name still applies actually for an Italian stiletto, but in any case, I think the portability of this weapon is something noticeable. Technically, I would say that like all spy weapons are portable. But if you compare it to, let's say, a heavy minigun, it's a kind of weapon that you feel. Technically, you can go as a heavy and kill someone and try to run away right after, you know? There are a lot of considerations on how you can go about that, how easy or hard it is to do that. But it is possible, and the thing is, heavy is slow, and imagine someone trying to do that with a minigun. So, there will be a lot of. It will make your job harder, right? But they still have to be portable, and as a weapon being portable, I think helps a bit with that, as I interpret, so that's why I'm kinda adding this idea of the game design to the visuals here. And yeah, what else? I've already mentioned the spy weapon, some nods to the mob, some time to the game design, this idea of running away. Yesterday I had a fourth idea for the critique, but I don't think it's ideal to just try to repeat everything. This is a fresh critique after all. Now we know this is an Italian stiletto, maybe that could matter, for example, instead of just calling this a pocket knife. But let's see, what else would I interpret as part of the creative vision? I already mentioned running away, the mafia, portability, I don't know. Maybe that's fine as those three. Big earner! That was the last thing. So what about this idea of the big earner? So that's a reference to mafia slang, right? Since it means that it's about okay, but we can think about the meaning of it, because the meaning of it is someone who earns big money for the family. So because they could call this, I don't know, the Godfather, for example, as a weapon, would still be a nod to the mafia, you know, to mobsters. But does the fact that it's called the big earner mean something for our purposes here? Well, if you earn a lot of money for the family, we could say you are helping the family a lot. And so, you know, maybe that's it. It's already it's already a mafia slang, right? So it already means something specific in the context of the Italian mafia, I believe. So maybe it's fine to leave as is. But yeah, I would just add that if you are helping the family earn a lot of money, maybe you can also be helping your team earn victories, kills, you know. But I'm not sure that warrants its own idea for the creative vision here. The fact that you're helping your team get a bunch of kills, help your team win. Technically, all weapons in the game help your team win in any way, because they allow you to do things that you wouldn't do without the weapon, you know. So I don't know. I don't think we need to be that specific. Only if there is something very special about that weapon that would tell you that it helps kill everybody or something. I don't know. Because like yesterday I mentioned how the eternal reward seems to have allow you to change type people because of the idea of the mechanic of the silent killer and disguising as you backstab. So one of the, I think, main design ways to make it hard, make people notice that you kill someone is the noise and the fact that you break your disguise. And the eternal reward deals with both of those things, so if you're undetected you could kill again, for example. But in any case, yeah, not only I don't see anything like that, just thinking on the design of the beginner, and I don't think the name itself needs to go that far, that specific. Again, yeah, it's helping your team win games, so it's also helping the family earn big money, supposedly. Yeah, I think that's how I would interpret it. That's how I interpret they envision the weapon. They didn't. They could have given this kind of name for your eternal reward, but the way I interpret, I think they just wanted, in their vision, the authors, they just wanted to be a nod to the mafia and the fact that if you are earning big money for the family, just the fact that you're doing your job as a spy. That's how I interpret their vision there. So anyway, so I have 3 ideas for the creative vision here. First, knife for the spy 1442. Second, some other mafia fantasy, mobster fantasy, and finally this idea of the fantasy of a knife that helps you to run away, and for example, due to the portability of Italian stiletto, all that. So, and the game mechanics. So these are the 3 ideas of the vision. Now let's see if the principles of art are what's conveyed then through on the judgment step, which is gonna happen right now. So the principles of art that I'm gonna be considering for this critique will be movement, unity / variety. I got a hiccup also. Contrast, emphasis, balance, and proportion. So I'm not gonna list every single one of them, but I'm just gonna look at what the ones I find the most noticeable to me, I notice more easily, and yeah, and also think on the vision, right? Might as well. So first things first, this idea of a knife for the spy 1442. I mentioned it yesterday, but I think I can mention today the principle of unity. I see it both on the continuity of the shade of gray, light gray on the blade, and also on the straightness of the lines on the shapes of the blade. Continuity is one of the ways to achieve unity. The flatness of the blade, of that. The flatness also is, I guess, has some contrast with the more thicker cylindrical handle. And all of that, and also the emphasis that to me I see emphasis on the bloody bandages, and there is variety because the use of red is kind of, there's not repetition of red anywhere else. So in all of those ways I think that I see visually through art our eyes being brought to the blade, or at the very least we can see that it was the author's use of the elements of art is all about the blade of the knife of the beginner, and the spy is a class iconic for using knives. It has the backstab mechanic, and all his melee weapons are knives or something that's similar to a knife. There is the kunai, the spy skull, even though they're not proper knives. They have similar dimensions to it. I guess I should mention the principle of proportion also, because the size of it is roughly the size of a knife, right? I believe. If you compare it to, I don't know, the kukri from the sniper, what is it? Which is, I think it's also, I'm not sure if you can call it a sword. The shahansh is kind of a sword, the bushawaka and the tribal manshiv are kind of swords. I would have to do this. I don't know if the kukri is kind of, yeah, it's kind of a skinning knife, right? Or something like that. So I believe we can, it's not about being a knife, it's only about being a knife. The spy is not the only class in the game that has knife, but it's about how iconic it is, and the dimensions of it I think also happen for the size of the knife of the spy. And all of that ties well here to the beginner and the principles of art that I talked about. So I guess visually we have enough clues to say that this is a weapon for the spy. At the very least in these ways that I mentioned, there could be others. For the spy 1442. What about this idea of being a weapon of something, of a mafia fantasy, stuff like that? So the mafia, the mob are known for use of violence to achieve their means. They are a criminal group, right? And so the use of a knife, especially for stuff like intimidation and threats, I think would fall easily in line with that. If we do some research, we probably can find some documented case of the use of a knife for some for something done by the mafia, you know, maybe specifically for the Cosa Nostra even, who knows. So I think it's like close enough to the whole idea. Again, there's also stuff like I mentioned, if the bandage is used by members of the mafia as a way to stylize their weapons or has some sort of meaning, there also could be a strong tie to it. And also there's the fact that this is an Italian stiletto, and just the name, I would suspect that an Italian stiletto was easier for you to find and buy in Italy. Or at least that would have been where it came from. And in any case, so easily we could tie to the Cosa Nostra, for example. Well, not specifically to the Cosa Nostra, but to Italy, you know, and being a knife also. Those are all like somewhat close concepts one to the other, I would say. Or correlative concepts, perhaps. And if it's about, when it comes to the design of the stiletto, we could mention, for example, the, again, principle of unity on the continuity of the black, I suppose. But we could also say movement. I see like the principle of movement in the shapes and forms, and the use of lines, also going from the base to the tip of the stiletto. And I think that helps look at the design of it as a whole. I would say also the principle of contrast, because there is contrast, as I see, between the black and the gray on the details of the stiletto. So on the black part of the handle with the other metallic details. We could perhaps also talk about contrast through the use of texture, because there is a metallic texture here, but no texture kind of on the black part. So all of that I see helping us notice the design of the Italian stiletto, and either remembering tying the concept of the Italian stiletto with the Italian mafia, or tying the idea that weapons and violent weapons are something that the mafia ought to use for their purposes. Something like that. I think it's a good enough of a conceptual link. So to make this make sense as a nod to the mobster, basically the mafia. Imagine if we saw a, where is it, a hot hand, for example. If we were talking about hot hand, oh, can I look at the hot hand? Okay, it's bugged. A different example. Sure, the red tape recorder. Wait, what? Go to loadout. Okay, the whole thing is bugged, I don't know why. Inspect item, go to loadout. Why can't I inspect the red tape recorder? Okay, jeez. Whatever, the gas passer, finally. Ah, come on. Why is it bugged? I don't know if you guys are seeing it on stream, but to me, for some reason, it's bugged and it's like transparent. I was just going to say like, okay. But the big earner is fine. Okay, whatever. I was just going to say that imagine the gas passer, if I was critiquing the gas passer with everything else that I talked about, does it look like an item that necessarily the Mafia would use? Then we would have to create a whole story of some of the Mafia using it maybe, and then that's not the point, you know. You shouldn't. It should communicate itself directly, I would say, one way or another, as much as it can. The lollipop, imagine having to try it to the mob, to the Mafia, to the Cosa Nostra, or whatever, you know. So, without having to try to create too much convoluted of a story, I see the big earner as having enough clues to tie it conceptually to the Mafia. Although naturally, there's possibly other uses for it, but in any case, I still think it's good enough. And finally, what about this idea of running away? So now, I did mention, the way I interpreted was not only the game mechanics, but also the fact that the stiletto is something with portability, right? That could be said for most other spy weapons, but in any case, I do think it helps specifically with the game mechanics of the stiletto. Oh, sorry, of the big earner. So the thing is, can we find any sort of clue of either portability or speed? And yeah, kind of, especially stuff like what I said for the design of the stiletto, contrast of the colors, and I think especially the use of line here, because again it ties to the design of the stiletto, where the blade can retract itself, right? And then you can hide it or run away with it more easily, you know, without the risk of stabbing or slashing yourself by accident. So ways that I can see a bit of the portability of it being communicated visually. A little bit, and as I said before, I'm tying that to the game mechanics of running away quickly with the big earner after you kill someone. And so, with all that said, I think I can pass Judgement, because all parts of the vision were communicated in some way, right? Were achieved in some way through the principles of art. So I guess I'll be calling the big earner as a successful work of art. Yay! Congrats, designers of the big earner. I think it was a community-made item, this one, and yeah, I think they pulled it off. It gave enough clues to not look weird as a spy weapon, let's say. And oh, and now the big earner bugged again, bugged for me. Oh no, okay. Gave enough clues to not look weird as a spy weapon, and also they wanted the idea of the Mafia and stuff like that, and also something about portability, as I see it. Yeah, enough clues there. Naturally, I think it's possible they were already thinking of the spy when they came up with the idea of the item set, you know, of the Mafia team. So it isn't that hard to tie those together. The spy already uses knives, the Mafia uses knives, so maybe that's how they went about it. But in any case, the important part is that they executed it well visually. At least as I see it. So that was it for their critique. Join me next time for more. See ya. Bye.